Welcome everybody. Today is August 1st, 2023. This is the Hannah City Village Council meeting. For everybody, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated, except for Brian, who's already seated.
Sorry.
He lost his balance.
I'm already thinking of the agenda.
I saw it. He fell.
That's right. Jolly's not wearing this every day.
I didn't even look up there.
Ron, are you here for anything specific, or are you just watching tonight?
I'm just enjoying y'all's company.
Well, you picked the wrong place to enjoy company. Okay. Everybody should have a copy of our June 18th meeting minutes.
Should that say July?
Yes, it should. Should say July on the agenda.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I said it and I said June, I didn't even think it. Then I saw July. Thank you, Abby. I will entertain a motion to approve July 18, 2023 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Sidak.
Second.
Second by Pearson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Takes us down to the treasurer's report. Ms.
I'm
Cassandra.
not doing anything on engineer. Oh, treasurer, never mind. It's next.
Only thing out of the ordinary on the treasurer's report is the hair construction bill for $8,500. That is the last bill for the lift station rehab. And I am transferring money from savings to checking to cover that expense. And
Since that was ARPA's one, correct?
And I checked the Illinois Funds account this afternoon, and the amount of interest we made for the month of July was $4,800.
Ka-ching. I think we have around $30,000 of ARPA money.
Something like that. I
You
have to
make a
double
note,
check.
double check and let me know how much money we got left in that.
What was the $803.76 charge for credit card purchases?
400 of that was for a new bug zapper. 350 of that was Home Depot purchases for Roger, and then the rest of it was like office supplies.
It was an extra bug zapper, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the second one.
Not like replacing one, it was adding one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen, I mean, is it
That's a lot better.
the,
It has been.
I haven't had any. I didn't know if they were out of season now or something. But
I haven't had any for, months now, since you really got going with the
a
bug
couple of
zapper.
the houses there that are pretty close, except that they went from thousands to hundreds. And that was a while back before we got the second zapper, so I haven't heard since we got the second zapper. But I mean, they're
It was hundreds of thousands.
they're emptying that thing out, both of them out, like every 2 or 3 days. And
Oh, wow.
they're full of, really full.
I can just imagine.
Dump them in the lake and feed them to the carp or what?
He said the funny thing is some of them, once they dump them, they come back to life or something, and they fly away.
Right back into the zapper.
Moths, that's what it was. The moths come back to life, is what he was saying. Yeah.
They're just stunned.
Yeah.
Now I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report and all the outstanding bills. Second.
Motion by Jared Botley, second by Sidak. Any further discussion? We'll roll call it. Miller,
Yeah.
Pearson,
Yes.
Rivali,
Yes.
Sidak,
Yes.
motion carried. Mr. Law,
Oh, there you
Sir,
you snuck in on us.
I'm a stealthy engineer.
No such thing. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I just wanted to poke in here, and Brian had asked me to kind of take a very quick back of the envelope, big picture budgetary look, just to kind of maybe think outside the box a little bit regarding your elevated storage issue, your water tower. As we've been talking about, you prepared a design so you could be shovel ready. It still sits there. We need to review the permit. And you had begun to go down the road seeking some potential SRF funding through the state and or federal sources to be able to provide assistance, forgiveness of a loan there. And we started that process, but I mentioned to you, I think it was back in April-ish, maybe earlier, that you're not the only ones in the market right now for elevated tanks is a little bit wacky. And we were estimating for the project as you had prepared it, which was really a nice project. There was a lot more than a water tower there. There were some site work and the water salesman, some demo, some controls. It was and a lot of water main. But we had thought a revised estimate there might be in the neighborhood of $3 to $3.5 million with the prices that we're seeing for elevated tanks. And that has not changed. We had a recent bid for one up in Dunlap that was significant. And we'll have some more this fall for other data points, but right at this point, we don't see the tank costs regulating to where they were. They may never come back all the way down, but they're still very high. So with that said, you decided to kind of push pause a little bit on the loan program, which was fine because you really couldn't do anything this year anyway. It would be something that we could do this winter if you wanted to get back in for next year's cycle, no problem. So what Brian had asked was just big picture thinking, are there alternatives? And you might recall, actually you may not, it's been a while, with when we did the elevated tank, we did a planning study to understand just how high would it need to be so we could be able to estimate some of these costs. And at the time we said, or you could consider ground storage. And that wasn't something the board was interested in. You've got an elevated tank. The EPA told you to replace it. It's certainly there are advantages to that, and so that's the direction that you took. So we did not explore ground storage, which can be an option for some communities. So Brian had asked, what would that look like? We've made some very general assumptions, made some phone calls, a few, but I want to state that this is back of the envelope, quick and dirty. It really does require a study to be doing it right, to understand the hydraulics, to understand the operations, to really get into the fine detail. But maybe that's next step. But as requested, back of the envelope type stuff. Brian, I think where I would probably land here, not knowing some of those answers, is between $1 million and $1.5 million, as opposed to the 2.5 to 3 for the tower. So if you're just comparing, looking big picture, it's probably in the neighborhood of half of the cost for the infrastructure. And that's something, without further study, I wouldn't want to get much more refined than that. Because the reasons are controls, the booster pump station. Really the difference is instead of using gravity to provide pressure in your town, you do it mechanically. You're providing booster pumps. You're pushing the water out. And that has advantages and disadvantages. It's cheaper than building an elevated tower, but now you're paying for mechanical pressure, electricity, maintenance. It's a little bit more complicated to cycle that water through there. We'd want to sit with Jim to see how he might want to operate the thing. So those are the disadvantages, but it can be done. And if something like half the cost is something that might warrant further investigation, I think that's what you're looking at.
The other downside is pressure, right? You won't be increasing the water pressure.
You can. That's what the booster pump station can do. It can.
Yeah.
High service pumps, you're pushing it out into the system.
instead of using gravity feed, we have the booster
Okay,
pump.
so
that
you can
actually-
still get the same pressures.
Yes, you can get the same pressures. And again, that's the hydraulic study we would want to do. Looking at the water source, how is it coming into town? Is that variable? We know now it comes in off Illinois American's main and it pushes it up into the tower. And that's regulated. So if we were to do ground storage, we would want to do the same study and see how that works with your source water, getting it into the tank and then being able to push it out. And then have redundancy because that you would be relying on it fully. So things like generators, extra pumps, these sorts of things that really go into the study to detail it. So, I've got in there $400,000 or $500,000 for a kit to do that. We had a bid recently for a skid like that, and one was $350, one was $550 for the package booster pump station that goes with a ground storage tank. So they can vary, and still, I can say it's cheaper than an elevated tower. It has advantages and disadvantages. Further study could hone those in, but it certainly would be a cheaper alternative up front.
So this came up as a possibility. I just wanted to explore it at a high level, and at the end of the day, we can stay on the path we're on and stay with the tower that we're talking about. The other issue would be is eventually we would probably have to replace our existing tower, right? So you're probably going to have to replace that eventually anyway. So it would be shorter term cost savings, but longer term you're going to replace it anyway. Probably not with a 200,000 gallon, but another 50 or 75 or 100. I don't know. So
yeah, the numbers I'm giving you are for 100,000 gallon ground storage tank. We got a budgetary number from a manufacturer.
Yep. And that one is at 150 versus 200, so we'd be 50,000 gallons short, but still enough to satisfy the EPA.
Correct.
So at this point, we didn't make any decisions. I'm just looking for some general thoughts and discussion as to stay the course, explore this further. We've got, as Brandon said, we got some time before we have to have all the information together to.
What's the viability, Brandon, getting ground storage and pumping to our tower? If we have the current tower, if we keep the current tower, I know there's some guidelines by EPA that it needs to be cleaned up and stuff like that, and some of the lining has to be redone probably on the inside. But what would something like that just is that even an option?
I suppose it could be. I mean, instead of pumping it up into the tower, you could pump it out into the system. You're still pumping. So that would be the kind of level of detail we'd want to sit down and look at operations. What does that get you? It gets you the use of gravity. When you're not using more than you're pumping. But there are probably some disadvantages of that tower, of course. And then looking at how the hydraulics all work out, that's really the complicating factor of this. And I'd want to sit down and really study that. And I'm not talking about tens of thousands of dollars here. I just would need some time to sit down, do a real study with math to understand that. But yes, certainly, Tony, that's an option. I don't know what the advantages would be long term.
What's the footprint of an underground storage tank that big?
That's a great question. I'd have to do some math. 300 or 100,000 gallon. It'd be.
Have you ever seen Limestone Alders? They've got a ground storage one behind their grade school over there.
It's not
You
like
notice it.
it's just on the ground.
Oh,
It's above ground.
Okay, yeah, I just seen it the other day.
It's not elevated.
And I think they're 150, right? That tank's 150.
Is it?
I think so.
I don't know off the top of my head, Brian. I'm sorry, I don't.
It's not.
I just seen
It
it, yeah.
depends on the height too, and see that's where the hydraulics comes in too. Is can you put it in a high spot? You guys don't have a lot of high spots, but you put it in a high spot. The taller it is, the more you can use it as for some gravity, at least at some point in time. But it'd be nose. Would be a large vessel. Depending on the height would determine the radius of the thing.
So I don't think we have to make a decision tonight. I wanted to at least have some upfront data. We can think about it for some time until the next meeting. We can have some sidebar conversations and then come back and revisit it. But unless you have thoughts and comments now, I don't want to.
You said the ground tank would be able to put out pressure. Would it be able to put out more pressure than we currently have?
We could, but see, it's not putting it out. We're pushing it out. We're pumping out of it.
Okay.
We're actually pushing.
Well, that's one of our goals too, right? Is to increase our water pressure so we can reach farther. And
so would this do that?
It could, yeah. We would design and purchase pumps that would do that, so that it would mimic the elevated storage tank. Yeah.
A new, bigger elevated storage.
A new one, yes, yeah. You were going to raise it so you had higher pressures.
Gotcha.
And you could accomplish the same goal designing the pump stations correctly.
We're strictly gravity right now, right?
You are.
So what if we left it unpainted?
It's an option.
They're not steel, are they? What are they?
I don't know. What are they made out of? Steel?
Steel. Yeah.
Yeah. Got painted. Okay, cool.
No additional thoughts at this point?
But I'm definitely interested in getting more information about it, seeing how it stacks up with our original plan.
Electricity for pumps, maintaining the pumps.
Yeah.
Yep.
Over
How long does one of the
how
pumps
long?
last?
Every 15 years, you gotta buy a new pump.
And then we're gonna have to replace our water tower anyway. But you're saying with not a bigger one, so that's another number you'd have to have.
That would be, if we got a ground storage, we'd probably have to get rid of the above ground storage.
So you'd have to get 2 in-ground storage
No.
to make the 150.
Do we have to make the 150?
What I was thinking was the current tower is 50, and then the ground station would be 100, and that'd take us to 150. So it'd be 50 short of the tower itself. That's what was going through my mind. But
So our goal is 200?
well, but I think the 150 gets us over the EPA requirement.
Okay.
200 was factoring in growth and some other things. And the other thing is we also have, the one project shovel ready, right? So we don't have to do any more work on it. But if it saves us $1 million short term, but there again, long term, you're replacing pumps. You're eventually going to probably replace that tower.
I don't think it's ever a good way to think short term on something like this. It's always long term thinking.
Gravity's more reliable.
What you're saying is we're gonna have to replace our water tower anyway. So if we plan on using that, you're talking about either a 200,000 ground storage or 2 of them at 100, or replacing our water tower in 10 years with another 100, which is gonna be bigger than this one.
Correct.
And that's gonna be another $1.5 million too.
The only reason this came up was the whole concept of we went from a $2 million project to a $3.5 million project.
Sure.
And so we were looking at are there options that would get us to the same place for less money up front. And I'm not saying that's a good idea. I just wanted to make sure we had options to discuss. So. Okay.
I would think that the EPA has to factor that in, that costs have increased and
Sure.
municipalities cannot take care of these just like because they want them to.
And ultimately, I think we can swing the existing project, especially if we get, the relief from the EPA. And
The long term in my head, the way it's playing out in my head, it looks like the exact same cost.
potentially, yeah,
Well,
it spreads it out over time.
you either need to double the size of the one we're getting, which is going to, I assume, be double the price of what this one is, which is right back to what we're going to pay for the new water tower. Or we got to do this and then get another water tower.
Potentially, or repairs to this one, yeah.
Or, yeah.
Yep.
But even repairing to that one, we're still only at 150 and we don't really have any room for growth,
Agreed.
which is our goal.
Right.
At least to have the infrastructure there, right?
Agreed.
There's also a reason places do it. Limestone Walters has got one.
Well, it's the situation would be if you didn't have a way to get the money right now and you have to do something right now.
Yeah.
But we can swing the big project probably with hopefully some forgiveness.
Yeah.
But a year from now, if we're dead broke and can't get a loan like that with forgiveness, I could see why you would just jump to that route.
All right, Brandon, thank you for doing that. We are going to table that for now, and we'll go from there.
I appreciate the opportunity. We're happy to dive as deep as you'd like us to whenever, if and when the time is right to do so, or any questions, always happy to answer them. So appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Anything else from me?
Yeah, you don't need to stick around. Thank you,
All right,
sir.
guys, have a great meeting. Have a good night. Bye now.
Abby, you're up, ma'am.
I don't have anything to report tonight.
Wow. Even better. Uh-oh. Thank you, Abby. Administrator's report.
Nothing in your packets, but I do have a few things. The IML conference is coming up. We try to send somebody every year. I think this year we're going to look at Cassandra going. And so I'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting. We can go through costs and all that stuff. So we have the cleaning position open, so that's a possibility. The auditors are coming the 5th of September, the first meeting in September, to give us the financial audit results. We got a meeting with Mid-Century on 8/15. They are building out now the Pekin corridor that we talked about, and Caleb's still working on his. So we're going to meet again and see what next steps are. If you remember Azavar was the people that did the audit of all the stuff to determine. They've got a monthly follow-up with me today. They're working on gathering data and so forth still. I don't have anything real meaty to share with you, but I've asked them to give me a monthly update, so they gave me one today. And it wasn't a whole lot. So we are working on some code issues and dealing with that, kind of taking them one at a time. The HERA registration, property registration, I think we're going to meet next week to get onboarded and go through that whole process. Waiting on the signed, executed agreement from them. Tracy and I have been going through the Apogee training for the new website. We're getting to the place now where we're probably getting closer to the design phase. So that's moving forward. And just to pause, Tracy's been doing a really good job on that project. If you get a chance, make sure to say something to her. She's I told her today, the last 6 weeks or so, she's done a really good job for us. So they're very happy. Finally, the streets guys helped tear down the fence for the park district. We volunteered some time over there and some equipment to help them tear down that fence, but in return they gave us the posts and the fence that we took out to the lagoon, so we've got stuff we need to patch our lagoon fence or whatever out there, so it was kind of a trade-off. That's everything I got.
Quick and easy tonight, right? Committee reports. Mr. Charavalli.
Well, I don't really have a report. Maybe this is more correspondence. You could tell me to leave it. I just wanted to bring up, I had a few firefighters in the area and out of the area and other places with the same situations, talking about the TIF district. And maybe it's my problem for not knowing as much about the TIF as maybe I should. They really think it affects the fire department in a negative way.
It does.
And I guess I'm not privy, so they asked me, and I'm like, I don't really know how to answer that, or how we could help, or how we could even.
I came in on the tail end of it, and they were intimately involved in all the discussions, and I know David Tuttle had a lot of questions and pushback on some things. But at the end of the day, basically what happens is when property taxes go up, that incremental amount is now going into the TIF district. So the incremental amount that the park district or the school district or whatever, what they would have gotten, they're not getting, right? Because it's going into the TIF district. So those new tax dollars are being moved in the TIF district. Now, the one thing that is different is the TIF district is mostly residential. And so the residential, every year we do give 80% of the residential back to the taxing bodies. So they're losing the incremental on the commercial, and they're losing 20% on the residential while the TIF district exists.
Aren't there organizations that are exempt from that? I thought schools and stuff.
No, because they're taxing bodies.
Yep, and so they all had to agree and sign off on doing it, and they did, and there was a lot of negotiation, and I think the 80% residential was a part of that, giving that back. I don't think, and I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head, but my perception is it's not as big a financial burden as perhaps they perceive it to be.
Right.
But there is an impact.
And that's kind of where I was headed with it. If I had something to explain to them with, or even a number, where the comparison, because they seem to think it's ginormous.
I can.
It's 20% of residential. Oh,
and the commercial.
And the
I can talk,
but that means nothing. That's just
right.
That doesn't tell you.
That doesn't give you a number.
Right. I don't know if that's a lot or a little, or
yeah, I can
compared to what they were getting.
I'll do some research and talk to David, because, like I said, I wasn't here when all that was discussed, but he would know exactly, what the impact is.
Okay.
And again, those guys all of them are taking it on the chin a little bit, because they understand that there's also long-term benefit, right?
Sure,
because as things grow and develop and property taxes go up and all of those types of things, then they benefit, just like we will.
Sure.
But that's a long way out.
Yeah.
But I got a to-do. I'll talk with David, see if I can't get you some better information.
That's all from me.
Nothing under planning and zoning for Mr. Johnson?
Nope.
Sanitary sewer, Mr. Pearson.
Yeah, for the sewer lining, they've TV'd and cleaned the areas. Didn't find any major issues, but there was one that needs repaired, but it's a repair we can do ourselves.
Actually, I think they did it today. Yeah.
Barely.
We found some open services that will line over and improve infiltration, but the actual lining should be done in the next 30 days.
Year one.
End of report.
End of report.
Water, Mr. Pearson.
Yeah, I've got some numbers for you. It's not complete. We're missing the approximate gallons sold, but I do have the shutoffs and the rest of the info. Total shutoffs was 28 for $7,200.27. Zero level pay. And 5 foreclosures for a total of $988.48.
It's just 27 houses shut off without water, right? Or they had it turned back on.
Could have had it turned back on. Those are just notices.
Those are notices, or the water actually got shut off?
Those are on the shut off list.
Yeah, they usually
Or they're on the time clock.
every
It's
month.
like getting ready to
every
happen.
month, it's probably somewhere between 20 and 30 on the shut off list. Those that actually get shut off is probably 3, 4,
3 to 5, yeah.
3 to 5, something like that.
How far past your bill until you even make that
2
list?
months. No, 1 month.
No, it's 2 months or $150, whichever.
That's when they make the list.
That's when they make the list.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tracy was going to talk to you about
Yeah, we have a lot of.
adjusting that.
Well, that's a lot of leeway.
It is. And we've talked about it, and it's one of the things if we do code simplification and so forth, we've talked about because of the prices of water, we talked about increasing the deposit amount because we're getting there quick, right?
Sure.
The higher amount, and then maybe doing something different in terms of this. But we give people a lot of grace when it comes to.
Well, I know that's one of the biggest drama causes there is here, isn't it?
It is. But I think it's all relative, right? Because if you give them, if it's only a month, then they're going to take as much of the time as they can, and that's just a handful of people.
There's no reason to increase pressure if it's not even on. I mean, what do you need more water for?
End of report.
Thank you, sir. I'll be down. Okay, building grounds.
So nothing big on buildings and grounds other than we as a staff, we've been kind of going through the performance management process, having discussions about what projects can we do to become more efficient, to increase revenue, better serve the residents and so forth. And one of the things that came out of our discussions, especially with Roger, was we have the built public works property down here that we have a handshake agreement with the robotics company that they have first choice to buy it, but there's nothing set in stone. Well, I asked him as one of his projects if he could do like a shovel ready almost, if we move the public works building to the lagoon and we could put that property up for sale. And we can have a conversation with the robotics folks and say, are you in or are you out? mean, that's a piece of property that anything that goes in there, commercial or retail or whatever, now you're getting property tax, now you're getting sales tax. I mean, that's all brand new incremental stuff. We know long term that there's the possibility of the fishery thing down here a couple years out. But that was one idea that we had. So it doesn't cost us anything necessarily to have him do the work to just say, if we put another building down there, what would it look like? How would that look and feel? And then we can sell that property or look at selling that property. So that's one of the kind of continuous improvement projects that Roger's working on. And then under the streets, I don't know if you saw, but the oil and chip work was completed. We did have to, because of the work that Ameren's doing, we did swap out the side streets between Main and I guess First, and moved over and did Hannah Street instead. It was about the exact same length, but that all went well. They should be back in the next 2 or 3 weeks to sweep up all the excess rock, and we'll communicate that when it comes out. Roger's got a meeting tomorrow with Heritage Homes, the one over here off of Murphy. That's the group that gets HUD money, and there's some sidewalk work that would be our responsibility. So we're trying to figure out what that looks like and what it's going to cost, and eventually we'll have a quote and what we need to do. But we want them to have their HUD money. I mean, that's a good thing. But there may be some sidewalk costs that we need to take care of there. So stay tuned.
Got a lot of good feedback for the streets. Everybody says they look nice.
Yeah, they do.
They'll look nicer too once we get the sweeping done and get all the loose gravel.
They like the light color.
I think it looks a lot better.
We talked about doing fog sealing after, which would make it black, and then theoretically it's supposed to last longer, but I don't know if the people like the black or the white better. The black would be, in the winter would be better because the snow and ice would melt better, but I don't know, it's just something we've been talking about. But thank you, it's good to hear.
CEC, Mr. Sidak.
All right. First of all, I'd like to say the new signs look great.
Have you seen them lit up at night?
Yeah, see the little lights on there?
Yeah.
Look awesome.
That one was off last night.
Which one was off?
Yeah, when you get close, your headlight shut it off for a second, but when you pass it, right when you get off it, they usually clicks back on.
Which one were you looking at? The one out here? Which one?
Hennessy Glassford.
Oh, Hennessy to Glassford. I had him switch the one out here to more of an angle, and I think it's done a better job of the headlights not turning it off and on as much, but I think he still has to do that on the other two.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think when I passed it, I swear it did turn back on.
It does. It didn't or did?
It didn't.
Oh, it didn't. I
I
don't
feel
know.
like it didn't.
Okay. Yeah, I can have him look at that.
But I
All right. In other news, Hannah City Tap has signed their agreement, and the sidewalk is done as far as we know, right?
Yeah, the only issue we have is it's a good probably 6 to 8 inches off the road, and I don't know what the rules are in terms of, I got to talk with Caleb. I was hoping he'd be here tonight. Whether or not that needs a railing. I mean, we're gonna put new asphalt and cut in new asphalt from there out a certain distance, and then we'll tar and chip that as well because it's in the right of way. But that's probably only get us another 1.5 inches. So you're still gonna have a 6.5 or 6 inch curb. Now, the people with walkers or wheelchairs can get on each end. So there's ramps on each end, but I don't know if there's a requirement like in the middle that it has to be a certain distance above the road. I don't know what the rules are.
I think it's to the handicap parking, which is on the side anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt people can get up and get in. I just don't know if there's any rules about how high that needs to be.
I know insurance is over a foot.
Okay.
It's a foot or more before they make you put a railing up for liability reasons, but that doesn't mean code's the same, but it might be similar.
It's right around there.
Yeah, this isn't that high. But it does look nice.
Yeah. It's really nice. And we just got to do something between the new sidewalk and the road.
Correct. And Roger's working on that now. So.
All right, and tonight we've got 2 more reimbursements from our redevelopment projects. One of which from the it's actually the first commercial project. They painted the mall. I'm told it looks a lot better, but I just am not observant. Don't really notice the difference.
It looks a lot better.
The parking lot looks great though. And we also have a residential reimbursement, which was below expectation on the one of the sheets here. It says they estimated the project to be just shy of 3,300, and it looks like it came in at 1,005.
They ended up repairing the windows rather than replacing them. So.
Okay. So, pending any further questions, I'll make a motion that we reimburse the set amount of $1,005 for project 23R3.
Second.
I have a motion by Sidak. I have a second by Chervali. Any further discussion? Comments? We'll roll call that. Pearson?
Yes.
Chervali?
Yes.
Sidak?
Yes.
Miller?
Yeah.
Motion carried.
So does that put a little more back in the pot then?
It does. Not a ton. I don't remember what the original reimbursement was. What's 80% of 3297?
What was,
Or 75% of 3297?
well, it said the maximum grant was $2,473. So it's roughly $1,400.
24 minus. Yeah. So $1,400 maybe, something like
That's
that
like
on the
A whole
residential
new
side.
sign.
And there was like a couple $100 left in there still. I think.
All right. And I also make a motion that we reimburse the amount of $15,000 to project 23C1.
A motion by Sidak, second by Chervali. Any further discussion? Comments? We'll roll call it. Chervali?
Yes.
Sidak?
Yes.
Miller? Miller?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Motion carried.
That is the end of my
Looks
report.
good, Ron.
I'm sorry. Who seconded the first one?
Sidak and Chervali.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I didn't write down the second.
I normally write that.
Glad I got that.
They've been doing work on the front of the brick building there, the new windows and tuck pointing. And I know the Sportsman's Club's almost done with what they've got. So.
Got parks on that sidewalk right in front of the building, you know. There's no way to
Oh, does
really
it?
park right there. You can't see anything when you're turning left. I always forget not to go that way. I can't believe we don't have more accidents right there. It is mind-boggling to me. You go to turn into Gills,
Sometimes
and somebody's backing up, and they stop right in the road all of a sudden. It's amazing to me. There's some kind of blinking yellow or something.
Well, it's because everybody knows. Especially on Wednesdays. You can't get through there.
Hopefully we can get the Hannah City Tap. She was trying to get back up and running by September, so that'd be nice because that's revenue.
Who would be? I mean, can you request something like that to IDOT? You got to show some kind of to get a blinking yellow to get something.
I would actually like to lower this, get with IDOT and do a request to lower the speed limit to 25 miles an hour if you can.
I think it should be lowered out by Dollar General in Casey's.
When I first got here, I was told that
it should be slow all the way out to Dollar General and then go whatever after that.
we asked about a stoplight there at Gills, and that we've been down this road a bunch. And
Stoplight might be too much, but something just to say, hey, don't forget on your morning drive to work or your afternoon drive home.
the other thing is, I'm going to check into it, but they just out on 150, they recently had the blinking signs that show you what your speed limit is and if you're above what's posted. Even that just is a nice reminder.
Especially when they go red and blue.
Yeah.
Shine at you.
Actually,
Light,
Chris
you're just gonna
Watkins
ignore
could probably get that.
not
Right?
pay attention to it after a while.
Does that come through the
Probably
sheriff's
it's like the ones in front of the
Yeah, I think
firehouse.
so, but I'm going to ask.
Yeah, we can buy those. Johnstown has.
We don't want to buy them.
Actually, I know the
I'm gonna
sheriff's
borrow
department, the sheriff's department does have some they'll bring out and put up temporarily.
Yeah.
For the chicken.
What I'm saying is, if we buy them, we
Is that
can
part of
move
our
them to
contract?
different parts of town.
They'll do that for free for any municipality they serve.
Well, they could probably write tickets if there's an actual yield light, though.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean,
That'll get your attention.
I can ask those questions and see what kind of.
It feels like it's just a matter of time, though, just before somebody really gets hurt. Or something
I mean,
bad
we're-
happens right there.
That's what it's gonna take.
The first parking spot is 3 feet off of 116.
That's not a parking spot.
Well, you know what I mean. If nobody writes that ticket either, it's just very. So I try to remember to go first or over the next one, but it's bad.
Yeah, I'm rarely driving through town. That's that.
It's bad and good. I mean, the place is packed. You know. But Mondays it's fine.
Administration, Mr. Miller.
Let's see, from July 16th to July 22nd, 5 calls, 1 motor vehicle stop, psychiatric or suicide, disordered conduct, reckless driver, and failure of conscience. That's all I have.
Anything else come before the board? Okay, our next board meeting, real quick. For those that weren't in here, I had talked about getting a pro tem mayor for some classes that I was going to be taking. My class is now on Monday night, so I will not have to establish a pro tem mayor, just so everybody knows. That saves from having to pick, saves Rod from having to do it. So next board meeting will be August 15th, 2023, 6 p.m. Nothing else. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Abby.
Okay.